I'm making an executive decision.
Uh-oh.
We're moving into the summer. I think this summer we're going to cover just
Summer movies
/ kids in danger.
Sweep the leg. You have a problem with that?
Welcome to the Project Gen X Retro Summer Series 2022.
Sarah, beware. I have been generous up until now, but I can be cruel.
Starting in May and ending in August, we will review the summer movies from our youth that include TRON.
I still don't understand why you want to break into the system.
Because, man, somewhere in one of these memories is the evidence. If I got in far enough, I could reconstruct it.
Adventures in Babysitting.
Don't fuck with the babysitter.
The Goonies.
Don't say that. Never say that. Goonies never say die.
Back to the Future.
Whoa, this is heavy. There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull? What?
And so much more.
We talked into the night. The kind of talk that seemed important until you discover girls.
If I can only have one food for the rest of my life, that's easy. Pez. Cherry flavored Pez.
Along the way, we will also sprinkle in some non-movie goodness that will remind us what it was like to be a kid when the socks were high, the shorts were extra short, and there wasn't a cell phone to be seen.
E.T. phone home. E.T. phone home. Wants to call somebody.
So sit back and join Big Dave, Barry, and myself, Alan Smith, to relive the magic of the 80s and the retro summer. You better have a moment for a recording.
All right.
Welcome back to the Project Gen X podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Alan Smith, along with...
I'm the other guy, Big Dave.
And I'm Barry.
And today we are still in our retro summer 2022. This is one of our movies that we're doing because it is the 40th anniversary of the movie TRON.
1982.
Yes.
What month? What month? Actually, July 9th.
There you go.
1992. Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's coming up. We have several big movies that we're going to cover this.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this we did Batman Returns because that was released in 92.
Yep.
Which 30 years. We've got this one for 40 years.
I'm not sure we should have celebrated that.
We're doing E.T.
Yes.
at some point this summer, which that's 40 years on that. And there are so many others. I mean, you start going down the line, The Thing. You've got, Poltergeist, which we are going to cover in October for Oktoberfest. There's just so many more. Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, God.
I mean, it's like you go down the line of all of these movies that are just like, oh, wow. And yeah, I just it's a great summer. I'm glad that we're doing this retro summer stuff so we can cover some of this. I know, before we get into, one of the last things we do every time is Barry asks the question, is this a rewatch? We already know it is for Dave.
Yeah.
So,
and for me too.
Absolutely.
It's this.
And I'm going to tell you how I feel about it here in a little bit. So
preemptive. Screw you, Alan. Screw you.
See, now you can do it. Now you can do it. You can't do
Barry,
it on an
give us
episode
a
ahead.
rundown of who is in this movie.
The 1982 epic that was TRON, directed by Steven Listenberger, was produced by Donald Kushner, starring, here we go.
Hold on. This is a Disney movie?
No, this
okay.
is a Buena Vista.
It was Disney production.
It has both on it.
It's a Disney production, but a Buena Vista
I get it.
distribution.
But if you look at anything, the promotion for this, it has Disney above everything.
Okay.
So
and Disney did do a lot promoting this in the parks. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But let me just, before I go over the list, let me just say this is one of the few movies that I have run into where you literally have nearly the entire cast playing multiple characters.
Yes.
And there's a reason for it.
Yes.
Let's start off with the biggie, playing Kevin Flynn and Clue.
Yes. For like a scene.
Yeah. Scene and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dude himself, Jeff Bridges.
He abides.
The Big Lebowski, True Grit, You go through the list for him.
Yeah.
Against all odds.
Playing Alan
Fabulous
Bradley.
Baker Boys.
Wild
Yes. Oh, so many good movies that man did.
Wasn't it him? No,
wasn't Wild at Heart.
My heart. My bad.
Something.
Wild at Heart was.
Something Heart.
Oh, you're talking about Crazy Heart.
That's it.
Crazy Heart. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Playing Alan Bradley and Tron. Bruce Boxleitner.
Yes.
Now,
Scarecrow and
you
Mrs.
probably know
Queen.
him. Babylon 5.
Yeah, I know.
As well as Scarecrow and Mrs. King.
Scarecrow and Mrs. King is the big thing I remember him from.
Now, the one actor that actually got 3 roles in this movie, 3 separate roles. He played Ed Dillinger, he played Sark, and he played the voice of the Master Control Program.
He played one of the voices of the Master Control
Yeah,
Program.
they kind of mixed a few of them. So, David Warner, the horror giant that is David Warner. This guy was in so many damn horror movies back in the 50s and 60s. It's not even funny. But the 2 big ones that most people know him for are The Omen, and more recently, it's not a horror movie, but he was in Titanic.
Yes, he was.
Played.
Yes, he was.
Billy Zane's.
Yes, he was the
right-hand man.
Yes, he was. I can't remember his character's name off the top of my head, but yeah.
Playing Laura Baines as well as Yori. Cindy Morgan.
Yes.
You may know her from Falcon Crest, but we know her best from Caddyshack.
Yes.
She played Lacey Underall. Bernard Hughes.
Plays Dr. Walter Gibbs.
Yes. And also played Dumont.
Yes.
Yes.
He was.
I love the fact that he named him Dumont.
Yeah.
That is.
Well, and what most people would know him from would be one of 2 of my absolute favorite movies of all time. One is Doc Hollywood.
Yes, he is.
The main doctor in
yes,
Doc Hollywood.
Does.
And he played the grandpa in The Lost Boys.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he
that
did.
is
Yeah.
it. Okay, I was watching this movie earlier today because I watched it earlier today, and I kept going. His voice, I know this guy from something, and that's exactly what it is.
But he is also one of the other voices for Master Control Operator.
Eventually.
No, as the original incarnation.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's the original incarnation voice for the NPC.
Okay. Dan Short plays Roy Kleinberg. Also plays Ram. Now, where you know him best from, he's done a lot of Hey, It's That Guy stuff, but the biggest role that I could find for him was he played Billy the Kid in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay.
And last but not least on this one, Peter Jurassic. What a last name.
I love that. Not spelled.
No.
That's the same.
No.
Though, yeah.
Played a character named Crom. Now, where you know him from, he was in Hill Street Blues. He was also in Babylon 5. So there's a big Babylon 5 connection on this movie.
Before we get into Hill Street Blues.
Yes.
Is one of those shows that has kind of we're already on a tangent here. It makes sense for we're talking about the early 80s. That's one of those shows that kind of like just outside of the name and especially the theme song, which is Mike Post.
Oh yeah,
that we were listening to that over here one night.
Yes,
Dave was
absolutely.
like, "Oh, Hill Street Blues is so awesome." I was like, that show is just really like faded off into obscurity.
I mean, it won primetime Emmys and everything else.
I know. It's just like, man, that was a huge show.
It had 2 of the greatest lines to open up every episode. It was either "Let's be careful out there," or "Let's get to them before they get to us."
Yep. The "Let's be careful out there" is the one that everybody remembers.
Yeah.
Right.
So. All right, Tron. I have my.
Be nice.
No, go ahead.
No.
Say it because
No,
I want to fist fight you.
I've got my summary here. Okay.
Go ahead.
Wait, is this your summary?
This is my summary.
Yeah, we're gonna fist fight out here in the front.
100% my summary here. Inside a virtual realm, the Master Control wages gladiatorial games among the programs and rules with an iron fist. On the virtual plane, Kevin Flynn searches for hidden files that could prove he designed video games stolen by Encrom Senior Executive VP Ed Dillinger.
Senior Executive.
That's what I said, Senior Executive VP. After his latest attempt to infiltrate the mainframe, Dillinger shuts down anyone with Group 7 access, which causes Alan Bradley's new program, TRON, to be inaccessible. So Alan and Laura travel to Flynn's arcade to ask him if he's been hacking the system. After Flynn reveals that he created all of Dillinger's video games, the trio hatch a plan to use TRON to find the files. Once inside Encrom, Flynn is hit with an experimental laser that digitizes items in the real world and places them on the game grid. When Flynn arrives in the grid, he is shocked to see that the programs are virtual avatars of their real-world users. As Flynn is prepared for battle, he meets Tron and Ram, and the 3 of them escape from the game grid amid a light cycle duel. On the run, Tron splits to get to the input-output tower. I love that it's the input-output tower. We're going to talk about a lot of this. To meet up with Yori, Laura's avatar, and make contact with Alan through Program Dumont. The MCP realizes that Tron is doing and has Dumont taken captive. In the meantime, Flynn and Ram are on the run from battle tanks, which leads to Ram's untimely death. Afterward, Alan... Okay, I can't even read my own thing. After Alan tells Tron to place his identifier disc in the base of the master control, he and Yori escape in a solar sail. Flynn makes it to the input-output tower in time to get on board as well, and they make their way to master control. But Sark derails the ship, seemingly killing Tron. Flynn and Yori, now in custody, escape the containment center and head for the MCP. But Tron lives. I'm sorry, I have to do it that way. And as he battles Sark to access the master control, Flynn and Yori sail close to the MCP beam, allowing Flynn to throw himself into the MCP. Tron defeats Sark and throws his disc, freeing every program as well as the mainframe. Flynn is then transported back to the real world, and the files he desired begin to print. Dillinger is proven to be a fraud, and Flynn assumes his rightful place as the senior executive VP.
Wow, if there's ever been a Cliff Notes version of this movie, that's pretty close.
Wow, that was so bad. You should write summaries for IMDb.
That right there was difficult to write because this movie is all over the fucking place.
No, it's not.
Okay, I'm going to let you two go ahead and gush.
Okay.
Then I'm coming in with my take.
I'm going to give him one thing on this, and you have to agree. Well, first off, let me just say, watching this movie in 2022 eyes versus watching this movie back in 1982 eyes, totally different.
Oh yeah,
totally different. I don't think anybody truly appreciated what this movie was when it was created, just from the aesthetics of it, the look. And
I'm going to say this before we get anything. This movie is gorgeous.
So I found out something about that,
and I mean gorgeous.
Yeah, it is.
Here's a couple of things, and before we start going into a little bit more of it, let me touch on that because I did a lot of homework on this movie. I love this movie, by the way.
Give us the backstory. Give it to us.
The way that they filmed
the
scenes.
Read my summary again?
No, because that sucked. Go ahead.
So
Barry.
the way that they filmed the scenes that are supposedly take place in the
grid,
the Matrix,
which,
the grid.
By the way, I have to take exception. They weren't transported immediately to the game grid. They were just on the grid. It wasn't until they were captured and transported to the game grid were they there.
So the way that they shot those scenes,
the fact that I watched this movie just a few hours ago and couldn't figure that out tells you everything you need to know about this damn movie. Okay,
well, I understand that you have no comprehension of this because of the way you
Barry,
talk about
go
the
ahead.
All right,
go ahead.
So the way that they filmed this, and this is just mind-blowingly cool for what they did. Basically, they knew that they were going to be using colorization in this movie, but they didn't know how to do it. So what they did instead was they filmed this in black and white.
Yes, I knew that. I knew that part.
Then, hang on, this is the cool part. They didn't just colorize it directly there. They took the black and white footage and photo-negatived it.
And backlit it.
And then backlit all of the white sections and then reversed it back. So that's why all of the dark sequences have the light glow to them, and the faces have that weird kind of ghostly look to them.
Yep.
When they were doing this, however, there was one small hiccup, so to speak. They couldn't figure out which colors were supposed to be the good guys and which colors were supposed to be the bad guys.
Yeah, they kind of go back and forth.
They got it figured out by Legacy.
And really, they only had, if you go back and watch the movie, there's only about 4 colors that they use on that.
Yeah.
They have blue, yellow, red, and green.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. I think you see some like purple.
It's kind of like orangish.
Yeah, and it's this weird
like
kind of neon glowy look to it, which is
oranges.
just fascinating. And I went back and watched this movie last night as well, and I kept telling myself, the infamous Amy and I were watching it, and I kept telling her, and she was telling me, this is 1982 technology.
Yes.
And it still looks that good.
Yes.
It was just mind-blowing. Now, all that being said, I think one of Alan's points on this is basically 2 movies. You have one that is
there are 2 different movies going on parallel.
You have the real world, shall we say, where it's the hacker trying to make sense of the world, and then you have in the grid. This is almost like a pseudo-religious movie.
Yes.
There's a lot of
and I didn't touch on. I left all of the religious like about the users and everything because it's part of the plot, but it's not essential to the plot.
I see. I disagree. I think it is because it's the whole idea of it really questions of why does a program do what a program does?
Because it was created that way.
Who created it?
Well, the
that's,
users.
That's
did.
the whole
I know.
point.
I get it. I know. I get it. You know,
this was such high concept for Disney in 1982. I mean, it was
which they would never touch.
No.
Even though in Legacy they did kind of touch on that a little bit when Flynn comes through the nightclub. You see some of that idolatry going on. It's Flynn.
Yeah.
One of the things before we get too far into this, you also talked about with like the special effects on this.
Yes.
The Academy would not nominate this
Yep,
because
they said
it was cheating because of the computers. Because this is one of the first computer generated.
Yeah, which is funny because if you go back and watch the movie, there's not very much of it that's actually computer generated.
You can tell
a lot of it.
There are a couple places like when they're once Flynn's on the grid and he's been captured, and they're taking all the new recruits onto the grid where Sark can talk to them. That is like one of the glaring that one scene where they're walking across the grid is one of the most glaring. Oh, these are two different things that were superimposed on each other, but it still doesn't look bad. Like it's not. It doesn't take you. It's like no, this is actually still really good, especially for 1982.
Oh yeah,
but everything else in this looks so, dude. That shot in the beginning of the Incron helicopter that's got the red lights on the rotors and on. That is one of the most gorgeous things I have ever seen in my life.
I mean, the live action shots are good.
I know.
Let alone
the stuff in. I know, and that's why I kept saying I was really when I was rewatching this earlier, floored by how good this movie looks.
Well, and you have so many iconic images from this movie. You have
Flynn's arcade.
You have Flynn's arcade. You have the light cycles. You have the identifiers.
Yes,
the discs. Yeah, no,
the discs battles. Absolutely. I mean, there's so many things that have just become so iconic.
That's actually what got the movie made. Is Disney wasn't going to foot the bill for this, and they made them do a test shooting using the disc and showing how the disc were going to look on film. And that's what got the movie made.
Well, and it's actually kind of funny. I was reading up on this a lot, and Steve Lisberger, the director on this, the creator of this movie, basically said he was inspired from this by watching kids play Pong.
Yeah.
And this is a weird kind of amalgam of Pong meets Alice in Wonderland.
Yep.
That's how it was described. And I was like, the more I think about that actually makes sense. It is very much a going to a world where the rules that don't apply, and knowing that something outside of the world that they don't.
Right.
It's very Stranger in a Strange Land. It's very, this type of plot line has been used in a ton
Connecticut
of
Yankee.
Yes, exactly. It's been used in a ton of different stories, but this one takes it from a whole different perspective because it's using something as non-tangible, for lack of a better word, as a computer program.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have a pulse. It doesn't really exist anywhere. It just kind of there. But this is looking at it from a whole different perspective of what does it look like? What does the world look like from the program's perspective?
Right.
And that's the thing that's found so fascinating about this movie. When I went back and watched it, I was just like, that is such high concept and such, way beyond anything Disney was doing back in the 80s. It's actually kind of funny. When this movie came out, it was released on July 9th, and $4 million on its opening weekend. $4,082. Keep that in mind. This became Disney's highest grossing live action film for 5 years.
Yeah.
But it was still considered to be.
It was a bomb.
It
was an absolute bomb because of the cost that it made to move.
Right.
I think when it initially was,
which is the reason why it didn't get a sequel immediately.
Yeah, it was made for it was $17 million to make it, and I think it grossed total right around 45 or 50 million, which in the grand scheme of things is good. But you also got to remember that they were still eating a lot of the cost from the black hole. That one that's what sank Disney for live action movies for so many years.
Which I like the black hole, but when Disney Plus came out a few years ago, I went back and rewatched it, and it has a lot of the same problems this movie does, and we'll talk about that. Go ahead.
You were just a bitter man.
No, I'm being realistic about it. Yeah. Look, do you know what S.I.M.P. stands for? like the actual letters S.I.M.P.?
It's been a while.
Suckers idolizing mediocre pussy. Okay, this movie is mediocre pussy. All right, this is
100% disagree.
Turn his mic off.
Just
turn his mic off.
All right, hang on. I want to hear this. State your argument, sir.
This movie is slow.
Okay.
As everything, it has horrible pacing issues.
This coming from the man that hates The Godfather. But go ahead.
There are so many scenes of reactions that go on for like 10 seconds that don't need to be that long. There are so many plot holes in this thing, it's not even funny. That stupid sale that they do actually there are 2 sequences in this that go on way longer than they ever should. One of them is whenever Flynn puts the tank or the sail tank back together. That thing goes on forever.
It's called a recognizer,
whatever it is.
Thank you very much.
It goes on way too long. Because all it is just a lot of like, hey, we got this cool CGI we're going to do. Let's just use it for as long as we can. Same thing with the solar sail. Those sequences go on forever.
See, I just
okay.
Let him finish.
Go ahead.
Are you finished?
And quite honestly, some of the acting in this is just terrible.
Okay.
And it's a slow, boring movie. And the thing is, I want to love this movie, okay? I want to, but I just can't.
So
because it's not one of those movies. It's the same thing. Okay, look, 10 years ago, however long it was, when Tron Legacy came out, okay, I was so excited for that movie. That was like the movie that year that I wanted to see above everything else. The night before I was going to see Tron Legacy, I sat down and watched Tron, and for the first time in a couple of decades probably, and could not believe how boring the movie was. And then went to the theater and saw Tron Legacy and said, oh, wow, they didn't learn anything in 30 years because that movie had so much potential and it was just long and boring and went nowhere.
Okay.
So
a couple things.
Hold on. Are you finished?
It's a mediocre at best movie. It's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. I love a lot the visuals in this thing. But everything else about it is just... What is that stupid tacked-on helicopter thing at the end of the movie? You get to the point where the movie should end, and they're like, oh, yeah, now we're going to have him fly in and land on the top of the building in a helicopter, and they're going to go downstairs, and that's going to be the end of it. There's no reason for that shot to be there whatsoever. I mean, Folks, honestly, there are so many elements of this movie that you would see on a movie that MST3K would do with these like overlong shots that go nowhere. But the thing is that people love this movie because we grew up with it, and I get it. I have movies that I absolutely adored whenever I was young that I've gone back and watched later and been like, oh, wow, I obviously didn't have a very discerning taste when I was young because I thought it was good because I sat in front of it.
Okay.
And so it just hasn't held up is what it comes out.
Okay.
Filmmaking in 82 was a lot different than filmmaking in 2022. Let's just put it that way.
All right.
Okay.
I'm going to defer over to my man Dave before I chime in on this. Go right ahead, my friend.
This is where I interject.
Okay.
Screw you, Alan. Screw you and your uncivilized taste in movies.
Okay. Well said. Now,
you feel better now?
That being said,
I do feel better.
I'm going to counterpoint a few
That's
things.
fine. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
So, first off, Tron Legacy was 2005. So
no, it wasn't. It was 2012.
Oh, that's when it was announced.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It
was, again,
Yeah,
7 years in development.
Well,
That's never a good thing.
So you have to remember one thing about this movie, okay? A lot of times, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong on this, this movie gets grouped in with movies like Blade Runner because they were so cutting edge of their time. But for what they...
What the...
Wow. Hang on. Breathe, Dave. Breathe. So... They you take a moment. This I
same
see
year
this movie,
came out the same year.
I see this movie getting grouped in with that because it's such a new idea.
Okay.
It's a new high art, high concept idea, taking the world and looking at it from, spinning it on its ear and looking at it from a totally different perspective. There's no easy way to do that. There's no fast way to do that. You can't really just cut to the chase, as you would say in this one, because part of the joy of this is the chase. Part of this is trying to understand what in the holy hell is going on.
Part of it is the visual.
And the visual is a big element.
And part of it is allowing the movie to breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
So you've got to have some... This is what I keep going back to. In today's filmmaking and television, we've got complete TV series down to 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Everybody wants it. It wants it now. It's got to be quick. It's got to be, there's no room for character development. There's no room for story development. There's no room to enjoy the actual visual.
Now, I'm going to hit him where he lives, though. As big of a fan of AEW as you are, you want to complain to me about long storylines?
Well, let's put it this way. If we're going to go wrestling terms, at least AEW is actually doing something with their wrestlers, unlike WWE, of where like they just have these storylines that never go anywhere.
Okay.
All the time.
In reference to
that's
the movie, though, with this, I find...
And look, I love long storylines.
Yeah.
This one doesn't have the long storyline problem.
The funny thing is...
This has a problem of... Oh, we're this. No, now we're this. Okay, now we're this. Okay, now we're this. Oh, no. See, now we're over here. Maybe we'll introduce this character. Well, we really don't need this character, but we're going to introduce him anyway. And then it's just...
See, and I totally disagree with you on this one, just because...
It's fine. We can disagree. It's fine. It's not
number
a problem.
one, the movie itself is only about, an hour?
It's an hour and 32 minutes long.
It's an hour and a half. I mean,
and it felt like I sat there for 3 hours watching this thing. I mean, it just...
Is it dated?
See what I've been
Is
living
it dated?
with?
Yes, I will say that there are elements of this movie that are very dated.
What?
You have to admit
82.
that. Exactly.
It's 40 years old. Exactly. It's going to happen.
On the flip side of that, though, when you're looking at the effects and the way that it's shot, there are times that I have to tell myself, this was made in 82? This looks that good now?
I agree.
And it's still, that's
I have not said
40
anything
years old
bad
technology.
I have not said anything bad about the visuals in this whatsoever.
No, but the visuals are part of the storytelling.
Yeah.
Visuals,
and you have to travel through those scenes to get to the stories.
This is the same problem with this movie that I have said many times, like when we talked about Batman Returns. Tim Burton, beautiful visuals, but sacrifices stuff like story development, character development,
this does
actual
not
plot.
Do that.
See, and I just, when I look at this movie, when I go back and watch this movie, I don't think that this movie...
I'm sure we're going to get some emails on this.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And all of them are going to be having me beat you
fine.
up.
Whatever. Bring it.
I mean, there's so many things with this movie that I think were such touchstones for what they were. Were they the best example of what it could have been in 1982? Maybe not. I'll say that. It's possible. Could they have done more with character development? Maybe to a degree. But that being said, when you're trying to basically fuse 2 different stories together in one movie and you only got an hour and a half to do it,
they didn't do a bad job.
I don't think they did a bad job at all. I think that, they really just did a lot with the character developments on this. And I love how when they're in the grid, they're talking about these programs and what they actually were.
I did like that.
And what they do. And
yeah, exactly.
I used to be part of an accounting program, but I got put over here in the game grid.
Yeah, I was in insurance. I was in,
and I love how he's gushing about being an insurance program, and Flynn is just sitting there going, okay, whatever. I wouldn't have given you a second thought, pal,
right? Exactly.
Yeah. But I just those little nuances throughout the movie, I think, were really clever and really smart. The way that they put this together, I think the way that Yori kind of is basically just a programming element. That's all she is. And we ain't even
the whole deal with Bit was really cool.
Hilarious.
I love the fact that you're a Bit. Oh, you can only say yes and no.
Only ones and zeros.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yes, no. Again, belong to. You belong to me.
Yeah. Well, but it's the same thing. Like I said, I love the fact that it was called the input-output tower because it's I/O.
Yeah.
It's 1 and 0. I mean, that's all it is. I mean, it's like
I know. Just the names alone on this is so just. It cracks me up. Clue. Clue is actually a
RAM.
Yeah,
I know.
Clue is codified likeness utility.
Right.
That's an actual program. Tron. There's still some argument as to Tron, whether that was based off of electronic,
exactly,
or if it's actually the old basic command of trace on.
Yeah,
that's the one that I heard.
Right.
But Sarn, and I mean all these like really short names that they give these things, which is anyone that's done any programming, anyone that's had any exposure to BASIC or COBOL or any of those other types of programming languages. Know that you have command lines.
MS-DOS back in the day.
Exactly. And that's what these were. These were command lines. I'm telling you what to do. And it just was really fascinating if you remember the scene where Tron is talking back with Alan 1.
Right.
And they're talking, and it sounds like somebody's typing this out on a keyboard.
Yeah.
And that was
end of line.
Exactly. End of line. I love that.
When MCP...
That was the name of the club in Legacy, was the end of line.
Right. Yes.
When MCP and Dillinger keep talking to each other.
Yeah.
And they're actually talking to each other. I'm like, seriously, guys. Like, okay, so.
I'm sorry. I could sit there and listen to David Warren talk for hours.
Here's the thing. It's like I said with I compare this movie to the Black Hole. Again, the Black Hole, when I have gone back and rewatched it as an adult, doesn't hold up as well as I remember it being. I loved that movie when I was in it. And rewatching it a couple of years ago, I was like, wow, this has pacing issues. Beautiful visuals. Beautiful visuals.
Right. And I don't think anybody would argue with you to say that Tron doesn't have some pacing issues.
It has some, there's just a lot of, there are a lot of pauses that you just would not find in a movie these days. And a lot of that may have something, it may just be the way that filmmaking was done in 82.
I think that may be the case.
That could be it.
May just be
there's been plenty of times going back and watching stuff from an earlier era
right.
or error that
you shut your mouth.
That stuff doesn't like it, it's like, no, they had this was the style of acting, or this was the style of filmmaking, or this is the way that they directed things, this was, and it's different now. We've been inundated with other stuff, I just wish that the powers that be had watched this movie before they made Tron Legacy and fixed some of those issues.
See, and I think I would partially agree with you, partially disagree with you, because going back and watching this movie, if you look at the characters that are in this movie, acting aside of this, what are these characters supposed to be doing? They're programmers for a big
I know. I get
so they're the most boring human beings having the most boring human being job.
In a lot of ways.
Boils down to.
I know.
So as far as how they were portrayed on this, I think they, Boxleitner and what was it, Morgan did a great job portraying them as just kind of like, corporate stiffs, because that's what they were. The only one that had any kind of flair to him was Flynn, and that's because he basically broke out from it. And can we just take a minute to talk about Jeff Bridges' hair in that movie? Oh my God. Was there more 80s of an element than that weird, Kentucky waterfall that was going on in that thing?
No. I mean, it was pretty much there.
I couldn't tell. The infamous Amy and I were having an argument as to whether it was permed or not. So
I would go yes.
Yeah, I said yes. She said no. It's as natural. But either way, those kind of elements of it were so of their time. I remember going into an arcade in '82, and you had music pumping, and you couldn't hear anything, and people gathering around other people watching a game, and cheering them on and stuff like that. The two Space Paranoids is a bit of a bad name, but
the two
they
best,
couldn't license anything that was real.
True.
So
the two best examples caught on film of those 80s arcades is in this movie and in Legacy, where he walks into the arcade that's been
and turns the lights on.
It turns the lights on, and immediately the games fire up, and
the jukebox
immediately
kicks
the
in.
jukebox kicks in, and you can almost smell the arcade,
the ozone,
and the sticky floor from the Coke that's been spilled,
and they're selling you the member berries. So
See,
I mean, it's
I don't give a crap.
I'm just saying, hey, look, I get it. I
miss those days.
I do too. I admit that. I love what's the place here that we went to that night with Rob and Ward.
I can't remember the name.
Game Terminal.
Game Terminal. Yeah,
yes.
I love that place.
I haven't been down there. I need to go.
That is one of those things that when I walked in that night, I was like, this is the place I wanted to go to when I was 10 years old.
Yes.
I mean, no ifs, ands, buts about
Flynn's
it.
Arcade.
Yeah, it really was.
How was the pinball selection?
Very good.
Amazing.
You name it, they had it pretty much.
They've got my Adams Family machine. Oh.
They had this
with the thing hand.
They also had my my Creature from the Black Lagoon that I love so much, as well as the Guns N' Roses machine, and as well as pretty much anything else. The Twilight Zone.
Yes,
all of that stuff.
They had Paperboy.
All right, field trip.
Oh yeah, I'm down. Totally. So getting back to this, I mean, it's funny because Dave gushes about Legacy on this. I didn't care for Legacy as much because
love the soundtrack.
It did feel there were elements of it that were very good, but it did feel more pandering to a degree. I'm sorry, I could not look at Jeff Bridges playing those characters and not see the dude. I didn't see Flynn. I saw the dude.
Right.
And, when they did that weird morphing that they did for him to get him to look younger.
Well, I mean, that was the only way. That was when they were just starting doing the CGI.
The facial morph.
the
It's also the
morph.
whole, as
once again, at the beginning of doing something.
Right.
That
No, and
posts now become regular.
Right.
And to varying degrees of
success.
There's been some of them that have been good, and there's been some of them that are
Halloween.
that are Grand
the
Moff
backflashes
Tarkin
in Halloween Kills is a good.
Yeah,
example.
but then you also get Grand Moff Tarkin
which is
from Rogue One.
The uncanny valley is hanging out.
Yeah,
all
I know.
Over the place.
Again, use sparingly. It's fine. Don't put
Don't
people.
base your movie on it.
Yeah, don't put people smack in the middle of the screen and let them stay there for long periods of time. I forget what I was going to say now. I was going to say about Jeff Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
And we could debate whether this is good or not, for any actor.
Right.
Post The Big Lebowski, it's just one of those things, like you said, there is no seeing him as anything else.
Crazy Heart.
Crazy Heart. I loved him in Crazy Heart, but he was the dude playing country music. And then you get True Grit, and he's the dude playing.
No, there's no. I will
playing
fight
Rooster
you on this
Cockburn.
one.
I mean, that's.
I will fight you on this one.
Again, and some of that may come from the fact that I love the John Wayne version of that.
Oh,
movie
I do too.
So much that I
it's
just
one
can't
of my
see
favorite
anybody
movies,
else.
But when you're looking at Bridges doing this, number one, it was closer to the book than it was the John Wayne one, and number two, the minute that he took on that accent and that walk, that gait, and the whole mannerisms, nothing about that was Jeff Lebowski. Nothing compared to flip it over with Tron Legacy,
right?
When you have the whole Zen thing that's going on.
I wasn't real thrilled about the whole Zen thing, and the only way to play the game is to not play the game, stealing it directly from
War Games.
War Games.
War Games.
Because when he goes into the grid the first time, he's this eccentric programmer and
and he doesn't know what the hell's going on and discovers that comes to the realization. It had a very, like I said, it was a very religious feel to it. It was very much a
and then in the second one, being in the grid for so long, he's turned into some kind of monk, and I'm like, okay, that might be a little too far.
He's Dumont at that point.
Yeah,
he became Dumont.
Yeah,
I was at Lebowski Fest 8 in 2009 in Louisville, Kentucky. And the Friday night they had their showing at the Big Lebowski.
Yep.
And right before it started, they were like, "Yeah, we've got a special message from Jeff Bridges that we filmed." And he's talking to, because they have several Lebowski fans around.
Yeah.
And of course he's dressed as the dude, and he's like, "Hey," and he's drinking his White Russian. He's like, "Yeah, I was like, sorry I couldn't be there, guys." He's like, "I've been busy with this little thing," and he reaches over and picks up the Tron helmet and puts it on.
Nice. So, speaking of which, I like I said, I did my homework. So here's a couple of little notes that I found that I thought was really interesting. Did you ever wonder why they were using discs instead of guns or anything else in this movie?
Probably because it's Disney.
No. That was a decision by the director.
Okay.
Basically, he wanted to distance himself from any kind of violent imagery that kids might actually try to emulate.
Mm-hmm.
So he figured if they use something like this, the worst that they could possibly do is hit each other in the head with a Frisbee.
I was getting ready to say it, as I can't tell you how many times I have either hit someone or been hit with a Frisbee because of that. Yeah.
That, and did you catch any of the cameos in the movie?
From
Pac-Man is in the movie.
Yes, absolutely.
Donkey Kong is in the movie. Mickey Mouse's head is in the movie.
It was underneath.
In this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Pac-Man was on the screen when he's looking at
Right
Czar
after
is looking at the screen.
Right after the light cycles.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Donkey Kong apparently appears in one of the hunched over scenes. When they're looking at the surveillance machines, it looks like the bent over Donkey Kong.
Okay.
And when the solar
sail.
Solar sail. Thank you. When that thing is taking off, if you look behind the solar sail, there's a distinct shape of Mickey Mouse's head.
Okay. Cool.
Yep. So it's a hidden Mickey.
Hey, you know what the best part of Tron Legacy was?
The end?
No. When it was shot, because it was shot in 3D, and I saw it. I actually saw it in 3D.
Yeah.
at the very beginning of it, and they put the Disneyland logo up there, and that was in 3D. That was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
The rest of the movie, But,
so when they were, and like I said, this was a very unusual movie. This was a very high concept movie.
Dave is just seething over
Disney did not know how to promote this. Okay, they had no concept of how to promote this type of movie.
Right.
So, strangely enough, there was an offer made by Playboy to do a photo shoot. I'm not making this
That
up.
does not surprise me in the slightest.
They were going to have circuit boards strategically positioned so that there would be no nudity. Needless to say, Disney did decline. However, one of the things that Disney did do at Disney World, I believe they did it at Disneyland too, I'm not 100% certain, they actually took a portion of the monorail and converted it so that you went into Flynn's Arcade.
Nice.
And they had a whole section of it that was there. The infamous Amy told me that she remembered going to Disney World when they had that going on. So she had actually seen the Tron segments on that.
Nice.
I know that it was 2011, is that right, when Tron Legacy came out?
2011, 2012.
Yeah,
I thought you said 12.
I can't believe it. I can't remember if it's 10, 11, or 12. It's one of the. I think it was 11. It wasn't quite 30
It's not
years.
like we don't have.
Yeah, it wasn't quite 30 years. It
knowledge
wasn't
of the
like, it
world
wasn't
in our
like right on the. I think it was at CES that year.
It was 10.
It was 10. It was 2010. Okay, I think it was at CES that year. You know, in January previous. You know, because it was released in December.
Right.
That they had a full scale light cycle on display.
Yep.
As well as they had
functional light cycle,
and they also had a Flynn's Arcade. That was like
they did a pop up.
Yeah, they did that. They did pop ups to several places with Flynn's Arcade.
But they made like 3 or 4 of those light cycles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Street legal.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
the light cycle
looks like the most uncomfortable thing in the world.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The light cycles are probably the most enduring.
I would say either those
from
or
this movie.
the identifiers.
Yeah,
because the identifiers.
But the light cycles, especially. I mean, especially because there was the video game.
Well,
there was the Tron video game,
and I've heard people make this argument as to the identifiers basically either inspiring or being inspired by Space Invaders because they have a very very similar shape.
Yeah,
but
they do.
The identifiers, that's one of the few things that did carry over into Legacy.
Yes.
Pretty close. There was, a few obviously newer technology, but,
Well, considering the storyline is they destroyed the original grid.
Right.
And started over from scratch. Mm-hmm. And that's why you would get your modifications and your ups, upsells.
Did you watch Uprising at all?
Yes.
I haven't. I've been meaning to.
I heard that was actually pretty good.
It's based between the original movie and Legacy.
Yes.
So
how about the arcade? Or how about video games?
Oh, we're going to get into
okay.
We're going to get into it.
This video games because there's several Tron games.
Well, this movie was actually one of the basic inspirations for Pixar.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
John Lasseter was actually a storyboard designer, and he later went to design the CGI effects that were used in Toy Story.
Okay.
So he's one of the founding fathers of Pixar.
It makes perfect sense. I mean,
which, by the way, I saw Lightyear this weekend.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Yeah, I'll check it out. The one other element that I'd love to talk about on this one is Tron Guy. We got to talk about Tron Guy.
I wondered if we were going to talk about Tron Guy.
Tron Guy is awesome.
Not really
early Maynard.
Not really early internet, but when the internet was kind of coming into its own.
It wasn't even
in 2004.
In 2004, yeah, it was like I remember Tron Guy because Tron Guy was again early internet celebrity.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. Actually, I think he shows up in the Weezer video that has all of the
the Pork and Beans.
Pork and Beans.
Yeah.
I want to say he's in that.
I think he is.
But so you were talking about Legacy. When Legacy came out, Tron Guy went to the movie and was asked to leave. Oh, was thrown out of the theater.
I did not know this.
The reason being, he went to a screening in Minnesota, but was ushered out when management decided his illuminated wardrobe would be too distracting for other guests.
Let's talk about wardrobe for a second.
He did eventually get to see it, and he said he wept openly when he saw it. So,
funny. Did you notice that when Jeff Bridges, when Flynn is
the
on,
cod piece,
he's got a piece that comes down over his midsection, and when no one else does,
because Jeff Bridges packs a lot of heat,
apparently. So, which is really funny because when he's Clue at the beginning, they don't have that.
So he's also seating.
Yeah. Well, no, there's the one scene where he's like when they de-res him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I was like, yeah, because I remember like reading that they were like, no, we had for decency issues, we had to put that.
Yeah,
had to put that.
He
over.
had
Like,
divulges.
hey, good on the dude, man.
And for whatever reason, did you notice that Yori's helmet changed like 3 or 4 times in the movie? She at the beginning she had like a skull cap, and then towards the end of it she was wearing a traditional helmet, and then it went back to a skull cap, and I'm like,
I kind of wonder. I guess my own headcanon for that is that after she left the IO tower, basically, that she put that on as the helmet. But I don't know. That could just be that I made.
I will say this.
Head, so
my only negative thing to say about this movie is they absolutely needed to have fired their continuity guy.
Oh,
because
what continuity guy?
Yes,
yeah,
I agree.
Because with the color changes, couldn't figure out who was going to be good guy color, what was going to be bad guy color.
The light cycles are the perfect example of that.
Yeah, the fact that the good guys are driving the red, yellow, and orange. The bad guys who are in a red costumes are in all the blue.
I know.
And all right, so let's talk about the video game for a minute, because you can't talk about this movie and not talk about the video games.
Cannot.
Yeah.
So initially there was the TRON video game.
Yes.
Which had 4 different games that you could play in it. 3 of which are actually referenced in the movie. One of them has absolutely nothing to do with the movie at all.
Right.
You had the light cycle game.
Yep. Which is hard as crap.
Yeah,
still amazing.
It's basically Snake on steroids.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
You had the one where you're shooting up into the MCP with the tower that kept moving around.
I'm trying to remember the rest of it.
You had the one with those basically Space Invaders, where you had the arm that would spin around.
Right.
And all
It's basically Space Paranoids is what.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, to a point. Yeah.
Arkanoid.
It's
Not
Arkanoid.
Paranoid, it's Arkanoid.
And I can never remember what the 4th one was, because I never played it.
It seems like I remember there being one with the tanks.
Yes, there was.
Yes,
there was. There was the tanks and the identifiers.
Yeah.
And I mean, that game got worn out every single time I went to an arcade. That game was there, and that game had been beat all to pieces.
Well,
and
it was
people played the crap out of it.
It was usually a line.
Yeah,
it was a quarter eater.
Oh,
there was no ifs, ands, buts.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing about it that was so appealing and is still appealing to that video, that arcade game, is that blue joystick.
Well, that glow
to it, the way, because again, they captured the aesthetic of this movie incredibly with this arcade cabinet. It could, it's one of I know that they did an updated version of it in 2010.
For the legacy.
And it's great because they added a little extra, like a few little extra bells and whistles, like lights and different stuff that wasn't on the original. But just that 1982 version of it is spectacular, and they are expensive as all crap.
Well, I mean, they were eye catching in a dark arcade.
Yes,
because they were backlit.
Right.
They would glow.
Yeah.
No other game at that time actually had a glow to it.
Well, that's the whole thing. The joystick glowed. Like, legitimately had that
just
blue
the joystick,
glow to it.
The actual frame of the unit. I mean, the head piece of it and everything.
If you're walking through a dark arcade, let's face it, arcades weren't exactly dark because they were all lit up with the neon signs and the other machines.
But it was all that
they were usually red and yellow and purples. And then all of a sudden you had this electric ice blue thing over in the corner just shining.
Yes.
And it's got a line of like 4 or 5 people standing there waiting to play the thing.
I know the fact that it had you had the joystick, and then you had a spiral controller on the side of it.
Yeah.
That was kind of the Arkanoid type stuff.
Yeah, and it was but the trigger was still on the joystick, so you had to work 2 different devices to be able to play the game.
There were, hold on, I can't remember if it was 2 or
Activision?
3.
I think it was Activision that made that one, wasn't it?
Hold up. Let's look at this real quick.
Well, while you're looking that up.
All right, I got it right here.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, crap.
He had it. He lost it. What I was going to say is, let's talk about the music for a second.
Yeah.
Because the soundtrack on this movie, freaking phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely.
There's only 2 songs in it that actually have lyrics.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, do you know what band did them?
Oh.
I found this hilarious. It was Journey.
Yeah, Journey did.
Yeah, that's right.
I knew that they
which is why you get the reference to Journey in the second one.
Yep.
There was Adventures of Tron.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was, what was it?
Well, there's Tron 3D.
Tron Deadly Discs. These were both released on multiple platforms, most notably like the Atari 2600.
Right.
I have both of these games in my box.
Why does that not surprise
of
me?
2600 games? Actually, they might be down there underneath my 2600.
Why have we not been playing?
I'm telling you.
He has all these neat toys.
I
He
have
doesn't
all
let
kinds of
us
stuff
play
that
with them.
and well, that's how you keep them intact. You don't let people play with them. I learned that lesson when I was a kid about letting other people play with my toys because they wound up broken. But yeah, there was that. And of course, there was the arcade game, and there's been a few like that. There was a Tron Legacy video game as well as some other stuff that's been released. I think there was one for Uprising also.
Yes,
if I'm not
there
mistaken.
was, and it wasn't very good.
Yeah, and it's just one of those movies that begs to have a video game tie.
Well, yeah, it's got
No ifs,
marketing
and
written
buts
all
about it,
over it.
yeah.
You can't take something that's
And
not high
toys,
concept, And the toys series that they had that came out of them, some of them really. The thing I always thought was so cool is they looked clear.
Right.
They were the.
I had a couple of them whenever I was doing the flea market. I'd picked up. I had one of Tron and I had one of I think it was Sark, if I'm not mistaken.
It's hard to find the Sark ones.
Yeah,
any of the red ones are hard.
I know.
to find.
I know I had one of the red ones. I think it was. I'm almost positive it was Sark. And of course they were beat up because they were at that time.
And
they were
I
30
distinctly
years
remember
old.
that they had a series of the light cycles that had the red strip that you could
pull
pull
it
and it
and
would
yes,
just
they would
chase
go
out.
out, yeah.
And of course these things they were like weeble wobbles.
Oh, I
and
know.
just
They
fall over.
They would almost never.
Well,
make
one of my
like a few
you talking
feet.
about the marketing. One of my favorite things from Legacy is where he's in the disc battle
Mm-hmm.
area and he goes, "I have a 3-inch version of you on my shelf at home."
Well,
Yeah.
just to kind of touch back on the music on this one. So the head coordinator on the music was named Wendy Carlos. She was an electronic musician. She had biggest name that she had done before that was an album called Switched on Bach.
Oh yeah,
where she did a lot of like the newer kind of new wave sound to Bach music.
right.
But she had done soundtracks. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
A Clockwork Orange and The Shining.
This is a hard pivot.
Yeah, but if you think
Both of
about
those
the
movies.
the instrumentation for those, and then you take that and you convert it into an electronic sound, you get that iconic da 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 da. It sounds like a video game.
Yeah.
It sounds just like a damn video game. It's like you want to hook up a controller and play the movie. The minute that I'm watching this, when the Buena Vista Pictures comes up and you start seeing the circuit boards flying around.
Which, let's be honest, the Disney logo comes up first.
True,
Yes,
but
it does.
Then Buena Vista.
yeah,
comes up
but it's that
afterwards, so
green screen.
I know.
Yeah,
all of
like
the
I
text
said,
on this looked like it was straight out of
looks-
a green monitor.
It looks amazing. It absolutely looks amazing, and it does. It kind of had that the tech like that. All the opening credit stuff
Right.
that's on there reminded me a lot of
Explorers.
No, I was in War Games.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot.
The same
of that,
text.
Again, there's a year difference between the two.
Right.
of them.
Just waiting for the butt because he always has a
No,
lot of
I'm
nice
not.
things.
No,
I agree with it.
I told you. I've said that from the first thing that I said about this is this movie visually is amazing.
He always
I
says
love it,
all the
so.
really nice stuff, and then he goes, "But," and then he craps all over everything
Well,
else.
With this one, I mean, it is a very polarizing movie.
Let's put it this way: the truth goes down easier with a little bit of softening up on the beginning. So it's.
Thank you, Mary Poppins. Anyway,
I said nothing about a spoonful of sugar.
No, I think he was definitely talking about stool softener there.
Oh, well, that too.
Craps all over everything.
well, all right. So let's.
I had another analogy, but this is a family show.
Yeah, since when?
Kind of.
What, the Manson family? What?
I'm the one that's tried to keep it a family show. You're the one that keeps screwing that
Oh
up.
my gosh! All right, well, let's just to summarize on this thing, Dave. I'm going to go to you first because we've already heard, Captain Craptastic over here. Give me your final thoughts on this movie. What do you think?
This is one of my favorite movies. This is one that I probably break out every other month or so, and I'll watch this one and Legacy back to back. This is
Right.
This is one of those things where I know I've got a Saturday off and I don't want to do crap, and
Yeah.
so I'm going to watch this thing. I am definitely going to introduce this to my niece the second she gets old enough to appreciate this.
Okay.
Why is this movie so boring? Why is it so slow? I watch better stuff on YouTube.
I hate to say it on this one, but I kind of agree with him on this element. I don't know if kids of modern era would actually have any appreciation for this because the technology's moved so far from there.
I'm sorry. I'm introducing her to this. This is going to be a great fun time.
And I'll be honest, watching this last night, this was the first time that I'd seen this movie in probably about 15, 20 years. I remember when I was a kid, I gushed over it. I remember also that I didn't understand half of it. It went way over my head.
Oh, yeah.
I was
absolutely.
like, this was so much of a visual overload that you didn't even really care that you didn't understand what the plot was or what these characters are or any of the nuances of the movie. Now, that being said, going back and watching that last night, I found myself gravitating more towards those nuances and seeing, oh, okay, this has got a real, almost a religious elements to it. And, you know, this is
TRON
really
fights for the users. You know?
It's a real different concept of thinking of how
it's got a mythology
programming, you know, exactly. It does have a mythos. Yeah. It has this whole, you know, mythos that's built into it that you never really think about, you know, what was my bottle of green tea here? Think of me kind of thing, you know? And that's basically what this is. This is what does the devices that I use, that I create, how does it view me? That's high concept art for 1982, and especially for Disney. You know, this is the land of bibbidi bobbidi boop. They're not coming up with stuff that's just going to make you think. They just want to keep you happy. So I think that's one of the reasons why this movie was so crapped on for so long and so, in some ways, hated.
Yeah.
Because had this been made by Universal, had this been made by
MGM,
you know,
first off, it'd been
Orion or somebody.
If it had been made by Universal, they would have screwed that up too.
So, well, possible.
Actually, you know what version of this movie I want to see?
Trauma?
No, the Canon Films version.
Oh, wow, yes.
There'd be a ninja.
Stuff would blow up.
Yes.
And there'd be some great catchphrases.
And Chuck Norris would walk on just in the middle of the movie for no reason whatsoever.
Of course.
Just like
well, he'd be driving the tank, you know?
Exactly.
He would be the tank. What are we talking about?
Can we wrap this up? I have to go somewhere and cry softly.
But is this a movie that I think I would rather show this to somebody of our generation who may not have seen it?
Lots and lots of breakdancing.
Shut up!
They already got the neon for it.
Exactly.
Why not? But I do think
new meaning to Electric Boogaloo.
Now you're crapping on one of my favorites. Wait a minute. But I think that with this, I do think this is definitely going to be a movie more for someone of our era that may not have ever seen it, that they're going to be able to connect to it easier. I think now, because we've moved so far away from the high art concepts into, like you said, the YouTube generation,
right.
They're not going to appreciate that. They're never going to sit there and try to figure this out. And I think that's part of the joy of this movie is figuring it out. And once it occurs to you and once you realize what it is, it clicks and you're like, oh my God, that's brilliant.
Well, what it comes down to is that this movie, visually again, is the reason that we have what we have today.
Oh,
this is the beginning.
No question.
This is
about
the
it.
beginning of it. I mean, and so it's kind of one of those things. It's kind of like going back and watching film noir, anything film noir.
Yeah.
And being like, I've seen this 1,000 times. It's like, yeah, but this is what created all of those tropes. This is what created everything that you love. Going back to what I've said, because Dave loves to bring up the fact, or likes to say that I hate The Godfather.
You hate The Godfather.
I don't hate The Godfather. I just don't hold it in. I like what The Godfather birthed afterwards. Okay. I like what Tron birthed. I'm just not a huge fan of the source material, is what it comes down to. I like this movie, okay? I did not sit here and shit on this movie. I just said this movie has problems, okay? And I like this movie. I want to love this movie.
Right.
But this movie has not given me anything to love except for the visuals, because the visuals are amazing.
Well, and
Flynn's Arcade.
And
okay? I'll give both of those things up.
You know, this is definitely a movie that people can struggle to pull out the member berries.
Yes.
And I think even if you step away from that and just look at it for what it was for its time, that's a totally different movie. Again, a totally different experience.
It's a different experience than watching it when you're 8 years old.
And absolutely.
Being like, oh my
absolutely.
God.
Glowy things.
And then
neat
watching
glowy
it,
things.
and then watching it at 48 years old and being like, oh, I see the problems. I see that problem. I see that problem. I see that problem. Here's the other thing before we've already beaten this much to death. Did you guys see this movie in the theater?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I don't think I did.
Okay.
Oh, that explains everything.
Well, no. But here's the thing. And the reason why I say that is because I really like, since we decided we were going to do this movie,
right?
And this came into the order of when we were going to do it. I've really been racking my brain because I can, for the most part, I can remember what movies I saw in the theater and which ones I didn't.
Right.
My vivid memory of this movie is sitting in the den at my Aunt Mary's house watching this on VHS. And they had one of those early 80s projection.
Oh, nice.
Big screen, you know, that had the little thing in front that was the green and the
where
red.
you had to have the lights low,
exactly.
Otherwise you didn't see a damn thing.
You know,
yeah.
And so, like, that's the memory that I go back to all the time of this is when I saw this movie.
Right.
Whether or not that was the actual first time I saw it, I don't know, but that's what I associate it with.
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay.
And it's funny because my Aunt Mary still lives in that same house. And I could go and sit pretty much exactly in the same place where I sat and watched this movie.
She still got the big.
Oh no! That's gone a long time ago. Yeah, I watched it on my iPad today. You know, because like I said, I was at work, and so I was kind of like watching.
Correct way to see it,
dude. It looked great. It looked so good, even on and I've got an iPad Mini. You know, it looked so good popping off of that. You know, while literally I was sitting at Waffle House eating lunch, watching this with my earbuds in, and just being like, "Dude, this looks so good."
Yeah,
you know. But yeah, it's one of those that like I said, I don't think that I saw it in theaters. I wanted to, but just didn't.
Right.
And so this was a VHS HBO free weekend. You know, one of those. Recording it, I know that I had a taped off the television.
Oh yeah,
recording of this. You know, from somewhere.
By the way, first movie to play on the Disney Channel.
Really,
very first movie on day one of the Disney Channel. It was,
that's cool.
It was played. They played
cool.
Tron.
I know I had the Disney Channel like way back then, you know, back in when we got cable.
Yep.
But it was already out. It had been on the air for a while, you know. So
well, and I will say, you know, in wrapping up here, one thing I think Dave and I have a bit of a soft spot for this movie just because of what we do for a living, and
You're
the
nerds.
fact that we are. I mean, we deal with technology and we deal with anything in the computer realm, and I honestly think that anybody that has that kind of exposure. Dave, I don't want to speak for you, but I'll say this definitely piqued my interest in the whole concept of computers, you know, early on. It was one of those things that you were like, is this possible? Is this real?
But even more for me because I'm more on the visual, the media side of it.
Right. God, this is right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Then.
The sound, the visual, all of that. I loved all of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, you can
do that?
Yeah, I admittedly am not as big of into computers.
Geek, you can say it. We're geeks.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. Again, I didn't have to be
right,
and I didn't go into a field where I had to learn all this stuff. Everything that I know about computers, quite literally, I did not learn when I was young. Mm-hmm. It's been from my early 30s to now. It is, you know, and it's not that I didn't own a computer. It's not that I didn't interact with them. It's just one of those things that I was doing other things rather than learning how to code or do whatever it is, you know. And so, but you know, even with my limited knowledge from, again, what I had was from middle school, like from 7th grade computer class in 1986 and 87 or whatever, on MS-DOS.
Right.
And, you know,
so you had basic.
Yeah, basic, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it's fun for me to watch movies like this, especially this, because I remember when I rewatched this before Legacy came out back in 2010, thinking the same thing of like, nothing really changes in computers. It just, the technology, like, there are, as far as programming goes, nothing really changes in computers. You know, we're still, you know, you're still, there are basic elements that have stayed the same from the very beginning.
Yeah.
All the way through, and I think that's awesome. I think that's cool. You know, as someone who's kind of on the outside looking in,
right?
So, but yeah, I like the movie. Don't get me wrong. It's just not.
It'll never hold that special place.
It'll never be. I said, it's one of those movies that I like. Let me rephrase that. I love the idea of this movie more than I actually love the movie.
So basically, I can go back to saying he hates The Godfather and Tron.
So, do you watch Family Guy? Are you familiar with?
Yeah, occasionally.
One of the earlier episodes of Family Guy, and I wish I could remember which one it was. They're sitting around having a conversation, and Peter drops out the bomb of that he hates the Godfather, and the entire family just starts ripping into him about hating the Godfather.
Yeah.
And he responds with, "I like the money pit. I give you Alan."
You know one of my favorite anything associated with Tron is, though?
The games, the toys, what?
The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror.
Oh, I remember that one.
When Homer gets sucked into the Matrix, basically,
and the sound, you hear the
and
same
he's like,
sound.
"Did anybody see Tron?" And they're like, "No, never saw it. Don't know what you're talking about."
Wrap it up, son.
So, guys, thank you so much for enjoying, maybe enduring this. If you have, I'm sure you have comments. You can get us,
have comments.
Yes,
please have comments.
Our email address is projectgenxpod@gmail.com. You can also get us through Discord as well as Instagram. All the links for that stuff and also on Facebook. I guess you guys might still be doing the Facebook.
We do still have Facebook.
I'm no longer on Facebook. So it is one of those things that you can get in touch with one or all of us through those. As you saw from our last episode, if you write us an email, we will read
and
it
chime
on there.
in. I mean, hey, if you think of this the same way that Alan does, don't be afraid to jump up there and,
it's fine.
pose an argument.
Look, everybody has opinions. Okay, we all know that. We all know that there are many iterations of that saying about opinions and what they're like.
Yeah.
Okay,
and most of them are like Alan.
Yeah. Whatever.
Oh.
But it's one of those things where like I said, I want to love this movie. There's just not enough there for me to love. So
on the flip side,
Barry
Dave
and
I
Dave
both love
this movie, and there is so much here for them to love, and they accept that, and that's awesome. I just, it's just not something that's going to make it into my rotation. There is that whole, I will every once in a while be like, dude, I want to watch Tron. Like every once in a while, like every decade or so, and then I'll like sit down and watch it and be like, oh yeah, there's a reason I haven't watched this in 10 years.
He likes the money pit.
And
just remember that.
I really don't like the money pit. So,
he loves the money pit.
Look, I have been full on honest about some of the about some of the garbage that I listen to.
I know.
Okay, and I'll say that, and it's the whole thing. It's like, look, I will never shy away from the fact that I listen to garbage music. Okay, I will never shy away from the fact that I watch trash teen soap operas, okay?
And I will never shy away from the fact that I give you crap about it every single time.
And I will never shy away from the fact that I got to deal with the two of you.
Yeah, and so
it's crap.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, look, it's all subjective, it's all opinion, and that's kind of what it is.
They're all kind of like Alan.
So it's... But anyways, we were trying to get out of this for like 3 minutes.
Wrap it up.
Anyways,
come on.
I am one of your hosts, Alan Smith.
I'm the other guy, Big Dave.
And I'm Barry.
And we will see you next time for another edition of Retro Summer 2022.
Yeah.
See you.